it's that thought of people doubting and the stuff that would like it'd be like laying in bed at night and stuff just keeps you up because you're thinking of stuff that just you want to accomplish so bad because you know what you're capable of, right?
Welcome to another episode of The Burn. I got this big smile on my face because I don't even know if the two of us can keep it serious to even get through this. So, Will Compton and I have known each other since 2013. We became Twitter buddies. We got connected before, right when he signed his undrafted free agent contract with the Redskins. And you guys know how this show goes. We're not talking about accolades. We're not talking about championships. We're not talking about his football career and all. We're talking about the burn. And what I want to try to attempt him to do, because it's almost like sometimes he wants to give me trouble and not answer what I'm looking for, is to help us better understand, like when I say the burn, and you think about having the sports hernia when you were in college, and like what caused you to go and run your fastest 40 time ever? What is that underlying burn that caused you to say, you know what, you can tell me I'm an undrafted guy, but I'm going to show up and take people's jobs? Like, what has been that purpose, that burn? Like, what's caused you to just do the things that you've done?
Yeah, for me, man, I think it really comes from like an underdog perspective. Like, you talk about the sport hernia and the stuff where I'm thinking about back when I was undrafted trying to make a team and stuff like that. It's that thought of people doubting and the stuff that would like it'd be like laying in bed at night and stuff just keeps you up because you're thinking of stuff that just you want to accomplish so bad because you know what you're capable of, right? And knowing that I've been doubted, especially like I say at the beginning of my career, and even now, like I'm a free agent right now. Like I'm thinking a lot about my transition with football, more so than just making a team and being on a team. Like I know what I can bring to the football field, but now I have this idea that keeps me up at night. Like I have to I'm going to have to transition. That's going to happen no matter what. That's inevitable, and it keeps me up knowing like. It's not that anybody says this stuff, but I just have this idea in my mind, that chip on your shoulder, so to speak, of people thinking that football players are an athlete or in a box, and they're not, once football runs out, like, I hope you saved your money, and me knowing in my mind, knowing what I've done with that avenue, and trying to find something else because I know what I can bring to the table value-wise, and it's kind of, it all stems around that underdog mentality of people doubting, and you just know what you can bring to the table, and I'm just, that kind of stuff always keeps me up, and I'm always trying to find ways to tap into my potential, and also, as I'm doing that, and once I'm doing that, taking that value and putting it into, say, whether it's my teammates or just other people's lives, I guess. That's what I think when you ask that question.
So one thing I think about when I hear you talk about this, I think about the hamstring injury that you had, right? You talk about underdog. You think about like when I was at that first training camp, you're literally playing on a torn hamstring. I mean, you talk about people are making excuses in their lives why they can't do something. You talk about literally not just the burn of somebody's heart. You literally had a physical burn, like your body couldn't do it, and you fought through that. And I told you on the phone, so I'm going to share something personal here. I told you on the phone recently, so you can get mad. I'm the big brother, so you can get mad at me if you want.
Are we allowed to curse on here?
I shared with you on the phone that because of all the stuff you've always fought through, no matter what you decide to do off the football field, you'll take that same energy, burn, passion, you'll do it. So what I'd love to hear is like one thing that's fun, and obviously we're kind of right in the mix of it now in here in Nashville.
Yeah.
Like you and Taylor Lewan, like tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and how you're going to take that burn, that belief, and just go do things that are different than what people have seen.
Yeah, so we're coming out with a podcast, and we think we've finally agreed on a title, Bussin with the Boys. We have this scrapyard-looking bus. It's like NASCAR themed with like Dale Earnhardt Jr. that we just gutted, put a lot of quality into it, thanks to Taylor. But Bussin with the Boys, and it's like we've had this idea of wanting to do a podcast together. And me personally, I love podcasting, and I was kind of like nervous, I guess. Years prior, you've known I wanted to do a podcast for a while or think about something I can do, but you always kind of think about what people might think and how that can kind of stand in the way of stuff. And this past year when I was with the Titans and a couple teammates of mine, they'd cross me in the training room or in the locker room or something like, Will, you should have a podcast. Like, why don't you have a podcast yet? And it's like, that's like the affirmation I needed to know that I just need a, am I allowed to cuss on here?
You can do whatever you want.
I was thinking
You
in my
never
head.
listen to anything I
know,
say.
I know. I was like, man, I need to do this thing, man. Like, I need to stop worrying about like letting those insecurities like stand in the way of something I want to do. And so I was getting super into the idea. Taylor was super into the idea, and so we kind of came up with this idea of us doing a podcast, sitting down with different people, getting into their stories, and doing it with our sense of humor, our personalities. And now I'm laying in the bed thinking, how can we make this more of like a channel or a platform for guys that once athletes or teammates or people see us doing this, where we're getting a text like, hey, Comp, how are you? How have you went about this thing? How could I potentially get involved, or how could I potentially do my own podcast? Like, because there's not a lot of active guys or active athletes that have their own platform, or they use their platforms for stuff like podcasting or stuff with video content. And that's the kind of stuff like we sit around and think about, like doing this podcast, having a blast with it, and then I start just rambling on with different ideas. How can this be a huge thing, and how can it give value to people, and not necessarily in just a listening perspective, but how can we inspire guys to want to do the same thing or to duplicate the same process?
Yeah, see, and this is why I get excited for what your future holds, because you don't give yourself enough credit sometimes, right, in some of these conversations that we have. But what you did as a undrafted free agent, fighting the odds, fighting injuries, doing all these things, you've always had that underdog perspective, and the answer you just gave, I think, is what inspires people. And that's that this isn't just a podcast. You're going to do it the right way. You're going to inspire other players. Because unfortunately, in the NFL, there's too many guys whose great stories aren't heard. And you're one of those stories who you want inspiration. You want to do bigger things. You've done the camps off the field. So I've always loved that about you. I think that's why we're so close, because you have this burn, this fire to continue to do big things. And I can't wait to see what you do off the field, regardless of what happens in free agency. So I love you, man. I believe in you, and I know that burn's going to take you wherever you want to go.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.